Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome aboard 3 planes at once in one video, because I tried to cover, well, practically the same plane in 3 different variants, of which 2 are very similar. I of course want to show you the P.108A Serie 2, the P.108B Serie 1 and the P.108B Serie 2. The first 2 have a battle rating of 3.3 and the second one of 3.7, and all 3 of them are at rank 4, so they are very low in battle rating compared to their overall tier. Now the first one, the P.108A Serie 2, is equipped with 102mm 102/35 mod 14 cannon with 50 rounds of ammunition. But it is a 4-engined attacker, so it doesn't get the bomber altitude spawn, which would have been fun for hunting bombers, but sadly it does just get the attacker spawn. Fair enough. Now, is it good? Well, now we have to get it all in perspective. The plane itself is not bad, okay? But it's not outstanding in any way, shape or form. A funny feature are the 2 turrets on the outer engines. While the gunners are in the middle, and you can see actually the ammo rack, the 50 rounds in the middle of the fuselage here, like in a tank ammo rack. I think this is the first plane that I saw it on. Maybe even the Duck or one of the American planes with the 75mm also had it. I'm not quite sure, I have to look it up. However, what is the problem with this plane? Because you heard it from the commentary. I'm a bit disappointed, and that is because there is a little implementation. I'm not sure if it's an error or if it's working as intended. So you can see it right here. When I'm flying like this, it's fine. It's fine. The plane handles like a 4-engined plane, and it's not very good suited as an attacker, therefore, naturally. You have no air brakes, you can't really pull out of a steep dive. But the problem is the gun. Stock, it's obviously very, very inaccurate. The rate of fire is for a plane cannon very slow, obviously. I would love to have such a fast firing cannon on a tank, to be honest. But I think for an attack run, you just don't have enough time to get off the 3rd shot. But the major issue that I have is you can't zoom in. You can't zoom in. Well, you can, but then your aiming reticle is out of the screen. It's literally above the screen. Here you can see it. I can't aim. Now there are 2 solutions for that. First of all, you then press the C key, which gives you the look around view, or as you can see, you go into the cockpit and then you have the gun sight. But it is a tricky one. If you're not used to that, well, you have difficulties. The next thing, the frustrating part then, is that you need more than 1 hit on something. And yes, that was not a high explosive shot. That, in fact, was a armor piercing round. At this point, I guess the gun was already upgraded. And you can see I actually damaged the middle of my fuselage quite heavily and killed one of my gunners in the process of flying above the destroyed pillbox. That's not very good, is it? Yeah. To make it very short, you have difficulties hitting your target for precise aiming. The plane is not very maneuverable. It's also very fragile. And the guns, the defensive armament, it gives you a lot of crits. It gives you a lot of crits. And that was an exceptionally lucky shot that I saw of his wing. In this patch, obviously, machine gun armor piercing rounds are much, much stronger. Now you can see here the damage model. I guess it's not a bug, it's more or less a feature showing you multiple layers of your plane. With big planes that kind of makes somewhat sense, but I think it could be improved, but that's just my opinion. Or maybe it's indeed a bug, but it would be not the worst bug that we saw in the game. But then let's talk about the other planes in this series. The B variants, the Serie 1 and the Serie 2. They basically are the very same planes, same ordnance, but they have, I guess, one different defensive gunner against The belly gunner is different, but that's about it. And well, they get the altitude spawn, they have roughly the same flight performance. Obviously they're missing any kind of frontal armament, which is kind of a shame, but again, it would be not really useful in a heavy 4-engine bomber. And then let's talk about the payload, because that's quite remarkable. Now, to be honest, I guess the overall flight performance would support a higher payload, but that's just me. So let's have a look at that. You start off with 34 50 kilogram bombs, and the next modification is 34 100 kilogram bombs. That is enough to nearly destroy all 3 bombing points. Then your torpedo upgrade, either 2 torpedoes or you have 3 torpedoes. Now that is interesting, because that's the first plane that can carry 3 torpedoes in the game, period. The next payload would be 7 250 kilogram bombs. Not too spectacular. Henkel 111s have 8 of them, but then 7 500 kilogram bombs, and with that you can easily deal with a mini base with 3 of them. That's exactly good enough to destroy a bombing point or a mini base, whatever you want to call it. And well, then let's talk about the torpedoes before we talk about the defensive armament. Now, as you can see me doing here on Norway, I go for the light cruisers. Those torpedoes are sufficient to that you just need 1 hit per cruiser, even heavy cruisers if I am not mistaken, but for carriers slash battleships, I guess you need more, obviously. Now, I have not tried it out how many torpedoes the carriers on Norway would need, but you know, at some point I will try it out. The problem with those torpedoes is that they are not Japanese torpedoes. Now, what's that? Well, overall the torpedoes are nice in their performance, but in the drop performance they are not that nice. So the drop speed is just under 300 kilometers an hour. The drop altitude at maximum 120 meters. Now in water they actually reach 80 kilometers an hour and travel 3,000 meters, and they're just shy of 1 ton mass. So while they do the job, they can also be buggy sometimes. You need to sacrifice all your altitude and you need to slow down in a defensive fire, and then also the enemy will get the messages that you just destroyed one of the cruisers. They can look around which cruiser doesn't have a blue marking above it anymore, and where the AAA just goes around, and all your stealth that you have by going rather low is gone. And that is not very good. Now let's talk about the defensive armament. In practice, I use an 800 meters convergence. With that, I think it is reasonable, manageable to hit the enemy, and you actually get a not insignificant amount of fires and critical hits, but you do not get a lot of hits and you rarely survive it. The recent buff for machine guns, or for the American 50 cals, has affected a bit more armament in War Thunder that I first thought of. It also profits these guns, of course. However, they are just in the top sphere of the plane, and for the lower part, your belly practice, you just have 1 machine gun with a limited firing arc. And forwards facing, you have no defensive armament, no offensive armament as well. So it's yeah, not very good. Also, you don't face too many bombers at that tier, and when you face them, it's either Germans or Americans. And the Americans, B-25s and A-20Gs, they can destroy with their 50 cals relatively easy. The fuel tanks on this plane love to burn, and either your wing then burns off, or you receive so much damage before the fire gets extinguished that you tip over anyway. Again, this patch, I think, I'm not quite sure, to be honest, if it's just those planes and they're rather fragile, But overall, I think the patch overall has kind of nerfed bombers quite substantially. While I agree on that, it's kind of laughable how easy sometimes you can take them down these days. And it's just the huge difference that I'm baffled by. Am I against it? Do I think it's a mistake? Not really, but you know, when you are on the bomber side, you kind of think in a different way, I guess. So there's that. So to summarize, I really like the look of the planes. I'm baffled by their rank, but I think it's more or less a placeholder, like the old Wellington Mark 10, you know, when it had a battle rating of 5.0. So this is what I think. Now, those are practically the planes that stand between the props and a lot of the desired chats, I guess. So in this respect, I have to summarize the attacker with the fact that it is not very effective. It's actually a letdown. A duck would be better, you know, the German Henschel 129, B2 and or B3 even. And the gun is big, but the plane around it doesn't fit it. It doesn't really support it. The handling is terrible. You can't zoom. The rate of fire is not good enough, and then you have those sparks on tanks. I had it very often. I hit the tank, I hit the tank with the armor piercing, and it bounced from the rear. Yeah. And you have the long flight, the high risk, you're fragile. With the bombers, you at least have the bombing altitude. You can drop on 1, 2, maybe even 3 bases before you go down inevitable. Yeah, and that kind of summarizes those bombers slash attackers up. One funny thing is, with the attacker, I would have loved maps like Kursk more often, you know, where I actually had something to shoot at effectively, pillboxes and or tank columns, but I mostly got Norway. And when I had the bomber variant, I got Ruhr or, you know, Kursk, where I just think I would love to have the other plane. So what you just saw here in the battle were the battles that I actually got the right map for the right plane, so to speak, and yet I did not have the impact that I liked. I think they are not bad and they are not overpowered, but it's kind of too balanced. Those planes just, they don't feel right. They don't have nothing really going for it. Yes, the 3 torpedoes are nice, but again, there is the American BTD, you know, single-engined attacker with 2 torpedoes, and many other planes also can carry 2 torpedoes. And you can't use torpedoes on most maps. Yeah, overall the bomb load is good, but to kind of drop the very right amount of 100 kilogram bombs on a bombing point and, you know, not just miscount it before you fly over it is also a bit difficult. Now, anyways, those are my kind of first impressions, explanations on those bombers. Again, they are mediocre, but not useless, but not overpowered. They are practically not a problem for anybody. If you are good, you can make them work. If you're bad, you don't pose a default problem like other bombers in the game. So yeah, it could be worse. And that's it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we will see each other in the skies of War Thunder. Nice flat spin though.